Good afternoon. Welcome to Biz Talk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we make courageous contagious. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
And I'm Aaron Canada, and we've got a very happy show for you today.
Now that makes a lot of sense.
Which is self-evident.
Yes.
This happiness to be self-evident.
And our listeners will find out a lot more about that today.
Actually, we do have a very happy show, and we're glad to have with us Natalie Susi. She's founder and CEO of
WhatHaveILearned.org.
WhatHaveILearned.org. And that is the website as well.
And it's the question I ask myself at the end of every day. The answer is usually nothing. No, I get to do this show, so I learn a ton every day.
Yes.
Natalie, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Okay, so I'm really... Back when I started radio in 91...
Yeah.
It was on a different station back then, but I had somebody that listened every show and then would write me a letter about how poorly I spoke. I'm not kidding. I mean, if I misused the English language in any way, I would get a letter from him, which I thought was really interesting because he went into all the explanations. I assume it was a he. I don't even remember, but yeah, it was a he. Anyhow, I changed stations, and I'm thinking, oh, I won't get that input anymore.
And
But he found me, yes.
Wow.
I know.
That's impressive.
It was that he took
attention.
He took the time to tell me that, and I kind of missed that. So my point is, if we misspeak on today's show, you're welcome to correct.
I can call you out?
Yes, please.
Okay, cool.
Because we want to do English fiddly spoken, right?
Good, it'll give me a break.
Take it over.
One of the things we talked about in your business is you make mistakes so other people don't have to.
This is real.
That's an interesting motto or an interesting thought, and I really do like the fact that people can learn from your mistakes. But before we get into that, give us a little bit of background on you.
So, to make a very long story short, basically, I'm a teacher by trade, and like the essence of who I am as a teacher. That's what I'm meant to do on this planet. And I was teaching at San Diego State. I went to grad school there. I graduated from there. I got a job there. For all intents and purposes, I was doing my dream job. I was teaching at a university, and it was really amazing, and I was super excited to do it.
And were you teaching English?
I was teaching an English lit class, yep.
Can you distill pretty easily what it means to be an educator at heart? Are there specific characteristics you think you were born with that drove you to that, and that's what excites you about doing it?
That's such a good question.
Wait a minute, I bet it's the power of the control you have over the classroom, right?
No, actually.
So you're just like the rest of us.
No. So I've wanted to be a teacher since I was 5. So I actually have on the website a picture of me teaching at 5, and my favorite gift to this day, I'm going to be 35, is a chalkboard that my mom got for me that was a real, like what I consider to be a real chalkboard. Like it went on the wall. It wasn't one of those like wonky easel green ones that you can't really write anything on. So that made me feel really like I was a real teacher. And I used to dress up and wear her heels, and yeah, so like I'm just a born teacher.
And did you have chalk?
Of course.
Okay.
And I had a curtain rod that was a makeshift pointer.
And you lined up all the Raggedy Ann dolls? And
you know what? It was all invisible kids. I was an only child. I had a great imagination, and I taught all, and I worked out all my stuff.
Now, with that model,
way,
I could teach today.
Totally.
To invisible kids.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It would be a little wonky now, but at 5, it's okay.
It made some sense. Do you remember why at 5? I mean, what was your experience that even taught you what a teacher was? Had you gone to kindergarten at that point?
Yeah, of course. I had always loved my teachers, and I'd always loved being in school. I was a little geeky that way, but I just really loved the whole act of distill knowledge. I don't even know. Like, I just loved the act of being in front of a room and being like, here's the things you're supposed to know.
What about your family? Parents? Educated? No.
I was just a born teacher, and it's all I did. Like, literally all I did as a child. So I would go to school and come home and play school. And I would ask my teachers for like old resource books that they would get rid of, and I'd feel really excited about like those teacher books that have the answers in them, you know, and stuff. Like, I loved that. I was wacky, I know, but I've just always wanted to be a teacher, and that's the essence of who I am. That's what I'm meant to do on this planet. And when I was teaching at San Diego State, I got laid off in the budget cuts, and I was on the side, I had started a company I named it after my dad. It was called Claudio's Italian Ice. And I wanted to I was an East Coast transplant from Delaware. I had just arrived on the West Coast.
Wait. Stop. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt your story.
No, it's okay.
From Delaware.
From Delaware.
Okay. I joke that Delaware's not really something that exists because nobody. I grew up on the East Coast, so but you never hear anything that happens in Delaware.
Other than Fortune 500, so it's like a tax haven, like the Grand Caymans, right? That's how it exists in my mind.
And I used to tell people I don't ever meet anybody from Delaware. I meet people from New Jersey, and you're here.
It's real.
What do you know? So there is a real place called Delaware.
Oh yeah.
So Dover isn't a place I just drove through.
No, it's a real place. It's a real place. My parents are still there.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you. So you were a transplant from?
I was a transplant from the East Coast, and I was like, why is there no Italian ice here? It was on the West Coast, and it's warm here all the time. So, Italian ice is a sorbet, if you don't know. Some people don't know what it is. It sells a lot on the East Coast when it's warm and humid. It's a good product. And so I had always been curious about business, and I was broke. I was teaching, and I didn't have any money. So I was like, let me just try this business thing. So I started an Italian ice company, and that was a total failure. Nobody on the West Coast cared about Italian ice or.
So this is one of those mistakes that you made, so other people don't have to.
Is this the same in Jersey and in Philly? They call it water ice.
Yeah, that's right.
So Rita's, you'll see Rita's every so often here on the West Coast, but you're right, it's not very popular.
No, because it's not humid here. You eat water ice, which is a totally ridiculous product name for it. Like, that's why I call it Italian ice. 'Cause people are like, what the hell is water ice?
Well,
like,
Aaron, every time you make ice, you make Italian ice.
That's right.
I find it very refreshing.
It's refreshing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great. So I wanted to make an all-natural Italian ice. I named it after my dad. My dad had done that. He's Italian. He's from Italy, and they had like a deli when he was little, and he knew how to make it. So he taught me how to make it. I sold it at street fairs and farmers markets. I never made more than $100. It's like you build up a store and break it down. Nobody cares about Italian ice. It was awful. It was a terrible idea, and I wasted a lot of money and time, but I quickly moved it into this cocktail mixer idea because all my friends used to ask me to bring my igloo cooler of Italian ice to parties, and then they would mix it with liquor, and they would make all natural, low-calorie cocktails.
So you turned what you learned from the Italian ice into a company that made mixers.
Did anything change at all about the recipe, or was it the same exact product, just rebranded, slapped a different label on it, and said, here, now it's something different?
It's a great question, too. It did. We changed from cane sugar, or we used like regular sugar, to agave nectar. So agave nectar in the cocktail mixer was like the newest trend at that time. It cut down the calories, and then it became this organic, low-calorie cocktail mixture that launched the same year.
Let me interrupt you. We're going to go to a break. We'll finish that story when we get back. Natalie Susi's here, founder and CEO of whathaveilearned.org. And that's the website. Go there. It's a very happy show. You're going to want to stay with us. This is Biz Talk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
And I'm Aaron Canada.
Don't you dare go anywhere. We'll be right back. Stay with us. How you doing?
Great.
Told you it's easy, isn't it?
Easy. Just
can't screw this up. Well, you could. Facebook, you could screw it up now.
Are you familiar with Justin, the organic peanut butter? They do Reese's Pieces cup.
Yeah.
So he thought the most brilliant thing in the world would be to put peanut butter in little squeeze tubes, because nobody had really done that before, and sell them as a nutritional supplement, almost with the bars, right?
It's a great idea.
But so he did it, and he got it on all these store shelves, and it was not selling at all. And either he had this idea, or somebody suggested, just put it in the peanut butter aisle. Like, why are you trying to sell it with the bars? Just put it in, and it'll compete. And he's thinking, but it's such a small serving, and it just took off. It's literally just changing the shelf it was on at the store. He could have gone bankrupt, flat broke with the same exact product, just because it was placed in the wrong place in the grocery store. And all of a sudden he realized people wanted to try. They wanted small servings of peanut butter to take on the go, and they wanted to try it. They just didn't see it as a nutritional supplement. They didn't see it as a bar, even though peanuts have a lot of protein, and peanut butter is a great, filler when you're doing physical activity.
Well, this is the same story about tissue paper. It was supposed to be a makeup remover.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that story.
Tissue was supposed to be a makeup remover.
Did you ever see the video Buns of Steel?
Mm-mm.
So
I remember those.
Back in the
80s,
before you were born, there was this woman that did Buns of Steel, and it was an exercise thing. She had been trying for years to market it, and I don't remember under what name it was, but it was failing miserably. And she changed the name to Buns of Steel.
And that was
same video, same everything, flies off the shelf.
Yeah.
That's what my product was, SoCal Low-Cal originally, and we changed it to Bear Mixers. So we did a ton of rebranding. That was
you could have merged with Buns of Steel and called it Bear Buns.
There you go.
Do you know about a company called Jazzercise?
Mm-hmm.
So Judy Missett's been on our show several times. She's the founder. They have like 8,000. Is it 8,000
Yeah,
franchises?
I think you're right. I think
So
that's-
when we were on the air, I announced
throw
that
that
Jazzercise was going to merge with Krispy Kreme Donuts, and they were going to call it Crispy Size now.
Okay, guys, we're coming back in 5 seconds hot.
I make a lot of announcements.
Welcome back. You're listening to Biz Talk, Believing in Scene Talk Radio, where we make courageous contagious. She's a teacher by heart, a writer by trade, and an entrepreneur by choice. She attributes her success to taking risks and being willing to ask for help and also get some mentors. We're talking today with Natalie Susi, founder and CEO, whathaveIlearned.org. I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Aaron Canada.
I'm Bob Ryan. Glad to have you back with us. That was the theme from Jeopardy, I guess, in your honor of being a teacher.
No,
By
it's
the
the
way-
what is.
What
You had
is?
all of the answers start with what is.
Oh, that's it. Okay, I missed it. Our engineer, Jeff, is amazing. But he's way ahead of me. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's
Got it.
just like way up there, and I'm having to catch up with him all the time.
All right.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's good to have goals, Bob.
So you had a point to that whole story. Oh, Alex Trebek. Has anybody heard anything about him?
No.
Is he okay?
No,
What's
he had brain cancer, didn't he?
I
he
hadn't.
did?
I hadn't
Yeah.
heard. As far as I knew, he was still running Jeopardy, and
Yeah.
was
Oh,
staying
I
as smart
watched
as
that
man
show,
alive.
so-
Okay, maybe I'm out. I just heard it on the news. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was somebody else, but I thought it was him. Okay, back to our story. We have a very happy show with Natalie Susi. Thanks for coming in. You started off at 5, knowing you wanted to be a teacher,
Yes.
and that stayed with you even through your education and launch into the working world.
Yes.
And
Correct.
ended up teaching at San Diego State, but then there was a budget cut. You got laid off.
Mm-hmm.
You decided to start a business, and it was the Italian Ice,
Yep.
which was very accepted on the East Coast, but the West Coast at that time just wasn't ready for it.
Correct.
You were getting ready to talk about that how the Italian Ice failed, but that launched into a cocktail mixer. So the same product, and I think, Aaron, you asked if the exact same product was being used or whether you modified it, and I think you were in the middle of that answer.
Yeah, so basically it was Italian Ice was juice, water, and cane sugar. And the bear mixers, the cocktail mixer, was juice, water, organic juice, water, and agave nectar.
Why did you switch from the cane sugar to the agave?
Because it was much less calories. And so we had to figure out, like, okay, we're creating this cocktail mixer. What is the differentiator? Like, there's a million cocktail mixers out there. What's the big deal? And the calorie piece was keeping it natural, but also low in calories was the piece that
So
we
there
did.
are people when they drink that actually look at the calories? Because after a couple drinks, I'm not
You
sure the
don't
calories
care.
matter.
I've met people who won't drink beer for that reason. Right?
Really?
They stick to hard liquor, but then you have to think about the mixers that you're using. So,
Oh, for sure.
were there a lot of those on the shelf at the time, though? Was this a novel idea to have a low-calorie cocktail mixer?
It was a novel idea when I started thinking on the idea, and then when I launched, when my first set of 52 cases landed in my garage, was the same night that Bethany Frankel announced that she was launching Skinny Girl Margarita, which ended up selling for $100 million a
Oh,
few years
timing.
later. So it was
Wow.
perfect because what was happening was I was going into bars to test out strategy, and nobody cared about cocktails.
Is that job
mixers.
still available? Going into bars to test out strategy? 'Cause I got some parts
Not nearly as
available.
fun as you'd think.
I don't know. I could make it fun somehow.
I'm sure you could. I was tired of it by the time I ended, but I would go in and I'd be like, I was talking to mostly men. It's still a male-dominated industry, and men didn't understand that women cared about calories in their cocktails, and they would say to me, nobody cares. And I would say, okay, well, what do women order the most often? And they would say vodka sodas. And I say, why do you think we order vodka sodas? It's because they're the lowest in calorie cocktails.
So women pay attention
Yes,
because
we
men
do.
don't
Yes,
care if
where
we
have
get
you
fat
been?
when we get
We
older. I don't.
So Skinny Girl came out at the same time as I did, and it was perfect because she basically did all the marketing work for me. So now I could go into bars and say my idea, and they'd be like, oh, it's like that Skinny Girl cocktail thing. People used to, when I was running the company and I was getting interviewed a lot, they would say, do you hate that woman? And I'm like, no, I love Bethany.
But so, as a first mover, you always have the problem of educating the masses.
Totally.
You're a born educator, and you're saying, I'm so happy she was out there educating
Oh,
the masses.
sure.
Because it meant that I didn't have
Saved
to.
me a ton of money and time. I was really grateful for her. Yeah, but I started doing food shows and stuff. It was kind of like there were 10 of us that all had this low-calorie idea at the same time. So when I came out into the market, there was, 8 others, and I know more information than any human should ever know about cocktail mixers. Like, I could go into the shop, I could go into Vons and tell you every single who started it, where it came from. I mean, it's ridiculous amount of knowledge.
So if
See,
you were ever
I
on Jeopardy and cocktail mixer worthy
Oh,
topic,
yeah.
you would
I would
just
totally
knock it out of the
knock it out of the park. 1,000,000%.
Yeah. So my theory is anything that has color to it can be a mixer.
Okay, that works.
Any liquid that
Sure.
flows that has color can be a mixer. Maple syrup works.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
But
a little
apparently that's not.
weird.
Yeah, I know. Apparently that's not
Not
what the
for
norm-
Bob. Just saying.
what the average person thinks is very different. But is it a woman-dominated marketplace that's paying attention to calories? Because I'm
Yes.
thinking men are overweight, most of us.
Yes.
We should be really paying attention.
85% of the women in stores, or 85% of the people in stores that are buying stuff are women.
That's a
So
good
you always
point.
want to market to them.
That's
Yeah.
a good point. So how did you end up distributing the product? Did you go direct to the bars, or did you end up with a retail distribution?
Yeah, so it's such a good question. I mean, I was really bootstrapped. I was just me. I had a business partner that was a best friend of mine. We were not the right business partners. I learned a lot in that process, and he, 2 years in, was like, I'm out. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And I was like sort of the... I just, I said sheer force of will. Like, I was committed. I had owed money on the company. I had people that had invested. I needed to just make it happen. So, I'm sorry, what was the question? Now I went too far down the rabbit hole.
Did
but
you go direct to bars or
Thank
via
you.
retail?
Thank
I
you,
went
Eric,
direct-
because I
thank
was
you,
blanking
Eric.
too. I was
went-
listening to your
Okay,
answer and I lost it.
Yeah, I went direct to bars and restaurants first. And then I got into one distributor in Orange County that helped me and ended up leading me to an investor that ended up helping me sell my company. So it was mostly bars and restaurants.
Did you make the $100 million mark? Like, no,
Bethany?
not quite.
No.
That would have been fun, though,
It
right?
would have been amazing.
Yeah. So you built a company.
Yeah.
You got it distributed through bars and restaurants. Your cocktail mixer product, right? And then you got it on some retail shelves, and then ultimately got an investor and sold.
Correct.
That was how long ago?
I sold it in 2014.
So that's just recently, a couple of
Yeah.
years ago. So have you been coasting since, or
No.
are you doing stuff?
No, I mean, I didn't sell it for like a crazy amount of money or anything like that. It was great. I sold the company. It was a really big win. And then I worked for the brand that bought the company for a year and a half, like as the face of the brand. And I lived, I had a room in San Diego and a place in Thousand Oaks. So I went back and forth. I kind of lived a double life for a little while, which was crazy. And then I left the company because I woke up one day and was just like, this is not what I'm supposed to do on this planet anymore. Like, I'm done with this. I sent my kid to college. That's how I felt. Bear Mixers was like my baby that I sent to college.
And we'll get back to that story. Our very happy show with Natalie Susi, founder and CEO of whathaveIlearned.org. That also is the website. She makes mistakes, so you don't have to. I love that. This is Biz Talk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
And I'm Aaron Canada.
We've got a lot more for you when we get back. Stay with us.
Is Bob saying your last name right? Is it Susi or
Susi.
Susie.
It's-
Susie's
Yeah,
good.
I initially
Sounds
said
like-
it wrong
Sounds like a
when
Z.
you asked me.
No.
Either one actually
Susie.
works, but it sounds like a Z. Yeah.
Oh, it does sound like a Z.
It's
Susie.
Susie.
Oh, that
Yeah,
is
you
like
said
the
it
first
right.
name.
You said it right.
Susie.
Yeah.
I think I initially said it incorrectly.
You know, it's another
just wanted
line
to
that I do
verify.
use actually more than this other
What's
one.
that?
Is we teach what we need to learn, which is not my original quote, but it is like sort of all the things I talk about. We teach what we need to learn. It's sort of in the same vein, but. How's it going? You good? Everybody's good?
Everybody's
Good.
happy.
How are you feeling? If you're feeling good about it, then we're doing
Then
good.
that's it.
Perfect. Yeah, you guys are awesome.
What?
I said you guys are awesome.
Huh?
I would not put maple syrup in a cocktail though.
I've done that before.
You should see what he's put maple syrup on.
I've got.
It's not for
Donald is
prime time
just like that. He used
Facebook.
to put maple syrup on ice cream.
Yes, I've
I
done
put it
that.
on ice cream.
I've done that.
But
Do
like,
you,
Wow. Yes,
did
I've
you
done
ever
that.
have king syrup?
No.
Love king syrup.
Oh my God! Did you ever eat king syrup? You can
It's in
only
the
get it
South.
in Maryland, Pennsylvania, and I thought across the eastern seaboard in that area. It is
Well, we could get it in Nashville.
best stuff in the world.
what does
Alright.
the
It's
Eastern
thick
Seaboard
syrup.
encompass? Is that south of New England on the east?
I think so.
East coast. So it's
all
like
the way
Where
down
are
to
you?
the tip of
Where is he
Florida.
from
Okay.
originally? Where are you from originally
Maryland.
on the East Coast?
West
I was
Virginia.
born in Maryland. I lived in Virginia, West Virginia. Spent some time in Boston.
Okay, got it.
But my dad was a minister, and we traveled all up and down the East Coast.
Oh, that's cool. Let's see how my face looks. Is it all good, guys?
No, you can make faces at the camera if
It's all
you
good.
want.
Oh, yeah,
Let's,
they're
like,
here. I
really
keep
mix it
forgetting.
up.
Everybody's here with us on Facebook.
My daughter is turning 36
Oh, so you were right. 82.
on the 14th.
Of what?
82 is June.
June? Oh, that's nice.
Flag
I'm
Day.
July 15th. Huh?
Flag Day.
Is she watching today?
Huh?
Is she watching today, or is she in class?
What does she do?
She's an artist. In fact, she just unveiled 4 supersized bronze sculptures
Cool.
that are lining
take
the
a few
133
candle
in Laguna
shots?
Beach. She teaches at the College of Art and Design in Laguna Beach. She got her master's in Florence, Italy.
Okay, guys, we're coming back in.
That is awesome.
I know.
She's really good, too.
Yeah.
Welcome back. You're listening to Biz Talk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we make courageous contagious. Our guest today, Natalie Susi, founder and CEO of WhatHaveILearned.org, is a happiness teacher and a coach. She was just listed on Forbes.com as one of the top 10 female entrepreneurs to watch and was listed as 30 under 30 in Pacific Magazine. We are so glad she's with us today behind the microphones. I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Aaron Canada.
I'm Bob Ryan, and I made the list of 8 million under 100. What?
What a wonderful intro. Thank
I
you.
know. Well,
Thank
you
for
made 30
that.
under 30. That's pretty
It's
impressive.
a long time
yeah.
ago, but yeah.
Well,
Beautiful.
okay.
It
To
still all
you,
counts.
a few years ago is a long time.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a long time.
I've got socks older than that, you know. Everything's so relative, right?
It is. You're right.
I hear young people say this is a really long story, and it covers a
it's
few
not.
years.
Yeah.
To me, that was a blink.
Yeah,
You know.
got it.
So we're back. You are founder and CEO of WhatIHaveLearned.org is the website. You can go there. You teach what we need to know. I love that. So you're an educator by passion, by birth, by heart.
Yes.
You spent your childhood and into your early adulthood knowing that's what you wanted, and actually end up teaching at San Diego State.
Yeah.
Got laid off, started a company, an Italian ice company. Didn't work out so well, but that launched another company that you were making low-calorie cocktail mixers, and that was called Bear Mixers, right?
You got it.
That turned into a sale. You launched that, got it up to the point where it was saleable, sold it, worked for the company for a while, and then woke up one day and went, this isn't what I'm supposed to do now.
Nope.
So did you have something to go to? Did you know that I'm not supposed to do this because there was something out there better? Or did you know you weren't supposed to do this and you had to go find it?
I woke up one day and one of the marketing guys called me to talk. He was a older gentleman. He was probably like 70 years old and just never wanted to retire. His name was John, and we were very close. We worked closely together, but he was like a grumpy old man, and he would say this like about himself.
They call that a curmudgeon.
Yeah, he was like that.
I
He
want
was
to be one of
brilliant.
those.
He was brilliant at marketing.
Check.
And he called me one night at like 6 and was like, we have to do XYZ thing with the label. And he was all fired up. And I was like, okay, John, like do whatever you want to do with the label. It's good. I'm good. No, we have to do da-da-da-da. And he was like fired up about it. Okay, John, do whatever you got to do. Then he said it to me again. And I said, I don't care about the label. Do whatever you want to do. I don't care. And then I was like, I'm really sorry,
Did you make him cry?
but I'm tired. I don't care about the label. And I woke up the next morning and I was like, I don't care about the label anymore. I don't care about any of this anymore. I'm done. And that's the day I noticed it. It was a day in May, like 2015. You know, it was not that long ago. And I just
So you knew what you didn't want to do, but you didn't have what you
No.
wanted to do.
Yes, exactly. And I had just moved to LA to be closer. Like I had just decided to move to LA, get out of San Diego, and be closer to the office.
That was your first mistake.
And that was my first mistake. And I had just moved in. I had just put my stuff down in my best friend's apartment, who I was staying in one of his bedrooms. And I just was like, this is not, I'm out.
I'm still worried about John's feelings when you told him.
He was okay. We've talked about it.
I don't know why. It's just really important to me that you helped him through that, right?
Oh yeah, we're still very good friends.
Because people don't know this, but men are very delicate
I
creatures.
said I was sorry to him instantly. I did.
So what was the journey like from the vacuum you left yourself in?
Yeah, it was
To-
challenging. It took
Was
a
it?
whole year. Yeah, it took a year to like sort of recover and figure it out. And it's really scary to do that. It's like really scary. But my mom said to me also right before I made that decision, she came to visit me in San Diego, and she doesn't give advice unless I ask for it. So when she says something, I really pay attention. My dad said it as well. It's just like, you're not happy anymore. You don't look happy anymore. You need to be done with this company. This is not what you're meant to be doing anymore. And I sat on it for about 4 days. And then
What was keeping you there? Obviously, having a paycheck, having income coming in is a good thing. But can you think of, like, what were the fears if you just left? And you could always look for another job while you were still working. So did you just up and quit, or did you kind of go that route where you did some soul searching and looked around at the universe and said, what do I want to do before taking the next step?
No, I left, and I think the thing that was keeping me there was when you create a product and a brand and you spend 6 years of your life on it and you have money and time and energy invested in it and it feels like your baby to some degree, it is really challenging to leave it because you feel committed, you feel obligated, you feel protective of it, you're afraid that the company that bought it is going to
Run it into the ground.
run it into the ground.
Yep.
So there's so much obligation around it. And the only thing I can describe with Bear Mixers, I'm so grateful for Bear Mixers. It brought me to where I am today. I never get nostalgic for those days. I never want to relive them. And it felt like I was pushing a boulder up a hill all the time. And so every time Bear Mixers would get 5 steps forward, something wonky would happen that would kick me 10 steps back. Every time. And my mentor said this to me one day. He's like, I don't know what it is with this brand, but it's like we get somewhere and then it's like this like backwards motion all the time. And it just is an indicator now looking back, hindsight 2020, like it's great that I did it. I accomplished a lot, but it just wasn't what I was supposed to be doing on the planet. And when you're not in alignment and on purpose, the universe sort of messes with you a little bit. Like, not to get woo-woo or to go too far down that rabbit hole, but things don't line up the way they're supposed to when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And so that is the thing I have learned in looking back. It's like, so when you're trying to do something, and it's different because some people say, oh, as an entrepreneur, it's a grind and you got to just keep pushing. If you're pushing a boulder up a hill every day, it's not what you're supposed to be doing. It's just really that simple.
It strikes me that you speak about entrepreneurship and this business and your experience much like a relationship. A lot of the language is the same.
I know. I
There's
was,
a lot of
I
that.
was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. You guys call it that way.
Wow, I didn't even think of that at
But
all.
that-
Well,
same
she's
perspective
describing
happens.
most of my relationships.
Yeah.
It's just be a guide.
After a 6-year relationship, you look back and say, well, I wouldn't want to be back in. But there's all these reasons on the day-to-day why you made a conscious decision to stay at it and keep doing it until you didn't, right? So something shifted, something changed, and you said, this isn't what's right for me anymore, and you got out. But it's really amazing to me that that's just the feeling I'm getting.
So you knew it wasn't what you were supposed to be doing. The journey to get where you are today has happened over a couple of years. Have you been able to formalize or break the code on how you find what you're supposed to be doing?
I am still figuring that out. I don't, what I like to do when I teach, I like to come.
I'm going to ask you to hold that answer.
Yeah.
That's a great point to stop because I want to hear that.
Me too.
Natalie Susi's here. She's founder and CEO of What Have I Learned. WhatHaveILearned.org is the website. It's a very happy show. You're listening to Biz Talk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Aaron Kanata.
We're going to be back with the great answer to that
The code.
really
The code,
life-changing
baby, the code.
formula. Yes. Stay with us.
I don't actually have like a 5-step process for that one piece yet.
It's still in development.
It's still in development. Yep. I'm sure it will be what I eventually teach all the time. It's a piece of
Well,
what I'm working
you
out.
talk about the 10 principles of happiness.
Mhm.
That's already formulated. You're using
I can
that as a
talk to that a lot.
foundation,
Yep.
right?
Well, then we could segue from, I haven't figured out that part, but I have figured out how to be happy.
Yes. we
And
can
what,
do
so
that.
whether, and I'm guessing if you're happy, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yes.
So
And I'd like to tell the story, too, of how I got to the Pursuit of Happiness class, because it's a really good one.
I went to a lecture years ago from a Harvard professor that was the professor of happiness.
Yeah?
Have you ever heard of him?
What's his name?
I
Do you
can't
know?
remember. That's
I know
why I
that
asked. if
Laura
you-
Santos teaches at Yale.
Yeah, this guy
happiness course.
went through his PhD at Harvard and never left the dorms. He was 36 years old, still living in the
Sean
dorms.
Anchor.
Is
You
that
talking
his
about
name?
Sean Anchor?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. I love him.
I
show
know.
him in my class.
His speech, like 20
He
years
has a
ago.
TEDx too, doesn't he?
It's so good.
Yeah,
I
I
show
thought
that
so.
in my class.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
The
watched
TEDx
really
it.
good.
Right. Yeah.
It's
It's
so
some really
funny,
good
too.
stuff.
It's very funny.
Yes.
He's very good at what he does.
He's a
yeah.
natural
He
funny.
totally. Yeah. I love showing that talk to my students.
So when we come back, we'll wrap up on the fact that the steps to find out what you're supposed to be doing are still in development, but the steps to happiness are evident.
Yes.
And then you can take us to how you got there.
Ask me the story. Yeah, it's a really good story. Actually, it's such a beautiful, fun story. And it's a little woo-woo.
Oh,
A little.
that's okay. We had some people that talked to their dad on.
No kidding. If you ever want somebody more into it, my best friend is an intuitive. She's an energy healer. She's super fun to watch and listen to. So if you ever need somebody in that space, she's awesome.
It was a really fun show.
It was a
Actually,
really good
it was
show.
one of our highest rated shows. So many people commented on
Totally.
that. We actually went to the seminar and they talked to our dads. Our dads were standing behind us.
That's right.
Apparently holding a wedding ring and indicating that we should get married.
They
Well,
kept
yeah,
playing
that's
with the
probably accurate.
ring finger.
Oh, that's cute.
But see, I doubt it because it took him 45 minutes to get to my dad, and if my dad had been there, he'd have been front and center in his face,
Pushed his way through.
right there going, pick me, pick me.
Nice. Okay, guys, we're coming back in. Welcome back. You're listening to Biz Talk, Believing in Seeing Talk Radio, where we make courageous contagious. And are you courageous enough to see how the sausage is made? Well, come backstage into the studio with us. Watch us on our Biz Talk Radio Facebook page. That's BIS Talk. See us with our guests and watch this overly oiled machine in action. And by all means, comment, like, and share us. I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Aaron Canada.
I'm Bob Ryan. Welcome back to our very happy show with Natalie Susi. She's founder and CEO of What Have I Learned and whathavilearned.org. Is the name of your company whathavilearned.org?
It's what have I learned.
Yeah, so, and then .org is the
Yeah.
website. She makes mistakes, so you don't have to, but I do like to add that you teach what people need to know.
We teach what we need to learn.
What we need to learn.
That's the thing
it.
everybody needs to get. We teach what we need to learn.
That's
So like
interesting.
relationship coaches teach about relationships because that's what they needed to learn about. So you can teach the stuff you needed to learn so well because you had to learn, figure out all these different ways to get it in your brain.
And speaking of learning, right before we went to the break, I was asking you if you had formalized the process to get to what you're supposed to be doing in life. And you said that was a work in process.
Mm-hmm.
But you do have steps to happiness that you formalized.
I do, yes.
Can you talk a little bit about why happiness? Because now we're shifting from business
Yeah.
to happiness.
Yeah.
What caused you to transition from a business world into a happy world?
Oh, that's a good question. I love that question. So basically, when I sold the company and left the company, I had a year. I had a guy that actually said to me, a guy I was dating said, you're never going to fall in love if you don't love what you do. And he was really in alignment and he was doing what he loved to do every day. And it hit me and I was like, wow, I really have to get back to teaching. I absolutely have to get back into the classroom. It was such a big moment for me. when
Because
he
that's
said
your
that.
passion.
That's my passion. But I always thought, this was the one thing that kept me going for the 6 years I was in the business, was I always had this like voice in the back of my head that said, someday you're going to combine this experience of entrepreneurialism with your education background, and you're going to live this extraordinary life where you're going to make the money you want to make and do what you love to do every day. But this entrepreneurial experience, being able to be a female entrepreneur and help other people navigate that, you're going to bring that together, that combination together.
Now, you chose English as your major, at least for your master's, right? Mm-hmm. Just real quick,
Yeah.
why teach English? Did you just love English, or did you love teaching and English was something that made sense to you? Why pick that particular topic
It's
as
a-
opposed to
it's a good
chemistry or
question.
geography?
Well, so math and science are not my thing.
Okay,
on
well,
any
that
level.
eliminates a lot right
Eliminates
there.
a lot. History is awesome, but I didn't want to teach it all the time. I loved English because I love writing. Writing is the way that I communicate the best. And I also loved analyzing texts. So I read a ton of literature and a ton of poems, and then I would analyze them, and that's what English teachers do, and it's really fun. And you can look at something from 5 different ways. And
So you enjoy English as well. So it's
I
not
do.
like you picked it, as a random subject. That
No,
was
no.
a very important. So how does your English inform what you're doing today? Does it connect somehow, or is it the teaching passion that connects?
It's the teaching passion more so. However, it's a good question because the English act of analyzing from a bunch of different perspectives is something that I use all the time in my life. So that process of analyzing and looking at things, and I teach rhetoric in writing. So I teach rhetoric is, the art of persuasion across all channels. Okay, how do you text, email, call, write? Like, who's your audience?
So you
What's
actually
the
understand
context?
how to do that?
Oh, yes.
Really?
That's I love that stuff. And we are all walking, talking pieces of rhetoric 24/7. I tell that to my students all the time. So if you can assess, who's the person in front of you? Who's your audience? What's your purpose right now? What's the message right now? And then you can go, okay, these are the rhetorical moves I'm going to make. Don't let the word rhetoric scare you. Rhetoric is what we all do 24/7. We are all doing that in every interaction.
I'm still amazed because I still work on the choosing between I and me when I make an and statement. That's still I have to
That's the
process
grammar
that.
part of what I
yeah,
teach. Yeah, I
well,
teach
that's
that
all I
so
get
much.
stuck on is grammar. Because
yeah.
I'm still trying to work it out.
I'm curious, what can literature teach us about happiness? It seems like so many of the great works are born out of pain.
Pain. Yes.
I'm sorry.
So good, yeah.
But so are there, I'm sure you could look at some classic books that people would point to, maybe even some of Shakespeare. But from my remembrance, reading the classics, which I have to admit most of them just bored me to tears.
Totally.
I don't remember a lot of happiness in it. A lot of the human story is misery. A lot of human history is misery. And this idea that the pursuit of happiness seems to be almost a product of the Enlightenment, and maybe since I'm sure people talked about happiness way back, as long as we've had a word to describe our emotions. But do you have does literature make its way into what you teach? Do you reference classics and?
Yeah, so there's 2 things here. So when I taught at San Diego State, I taught English Lit. At UCSD, which is kind of where we're transitioning now, this Pursuit of Happiness course, it's a rhetoric and writing course. So the stuff that they are reading is articles, not literature. But to point to what you're saying, which is really awesome, is the classics are generally depressing and the writers are generally depressed. And so that's the other side of happiness, right? So you can't have one without the other. So
Sure.
It's the suffering versus the happiness piece, and that's kind of the discovery of
Sometimes
that,
the deeper the suffering, the higher the highs are,
Yes,
right?
yes.
That can act. If you have basically a flatline life, there's not going to be any highs or lows.
That's
That
right.
would
We
be
don't have a
really boring.
perspective.
Yeah.
It'd be really boring.
That's right.
And that's a good point. And so what you call the pursuit of happiness, it's not an endpoint, right? This is a continuous practice, almost like a meditation practice, yoga practice. The practice of pursuing happiness, maybe you can get to where you experience it more often when you're living a great life, but nobody will expect that they should get to a point where they're happy all the time, right?
Well, you don't call it acquiring happiness.
Right.
You call it pursuing happiness.
Pursuing happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you could acquire it, known it, then there would be no pursuit left.
That's right. Yeah, it's never done.
So
you never get
the
it done.
process to get there, you have formalized or put an algorithm together or
Principles?
steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just share with you guys briefly the story of how I landed
Yes.
the course, because it's such a awesome story that I'm very grateful to share, to be able to share. But basically what happened was when I made the decision to come back to teaching, I came back to San Diego from LA, and my mentor gave me a book called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. Jack Canfield is the same guy that wrote he's the Chicken Soup for the Soul guy. So the Success Principles in Chapter 7 had a goal-setting exercise, and they're SMART goals. They set up SMART goals, basically. It teaches you how to do a SMART goal, which is a specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-sensitive goal.
And Canfield's book again that you read was?
The Success Principles.
The Success Principles, okay.
Now, Jack Canfield, I've been down the personal development rabbit hole for about 5 years, and he's the first person that I ever paid attention to when I was young, when I was like had Chicken Soup for the Soul in my house, and I watched The Secret, and so he was like the first person that introduced me to like what is this personal development stuff.
And you know what? We're going to hold you there.
Yeah, okay.
We get to use the same thing twice to bring people back, right? To hear the rest of the story and some great information. You're going to want to stay tuned. Natalie Susi is here. She's founder and CEO of whathaveilearned.org. Go there during the break. You're listening to Biz Talk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Aaron Canada.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. So we'll bring it right back to you when we get back. If we get time, I would love down the road, if we have time, and because I know you have stuff to talk about, to ask what your input is on having a mentor. Because you've mentioned mentor like 10 times so far, and how important is that to you? And I don't think a lot of people have mentors.
It's really silly not to have a mentor.
There's a book on how to find a mentor.
Yeah, maybe.
There's lots of books on mentoring, but not how to find one.
Oh yeah, it's a big.
How come there's so many books on leadership, but none on
Mom
followership?
says her and Tracy are
I
enjoying
don't know.
it.
It's a good
I want to write a
question.
book on
Oh,
followership
nice.
so people know, because most
Very
people are
nice.
followers, not
You totally
leaders.
should. It's a really good point.
Well, I got 18,000 books to write.
I bet.
My mind is a
very good.
minefield of ideas.
That's awesome. That's beautiful.
His mind is going 24/7.
That's
He has a hard
beautiful.
time sleeping. Idea after idea. It's all good.
That's awesome though. Just
She always
like
listens to them.
moving,
She doesn't really, well, you pretend to listen, I think.
I listen to all of them.
You do?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely
sweet.
do. But that doesn't mean I agree with everything. I mean, that would
Yes,
be,
you do.
Well, I may not
Yes,
like
you do.
this, but
Yes.
doesn't mean I agree with everything.
Don't destroy my dream.
It's all good.
Mm-mm. Not if you don't believe me.
Let's see how it's looking.
You're going to make me cry. So John's okay. His emotions are good.
He's fine. John loves that story now when I tell him.
I bet.
Like, John, that
I
day,
really
I was
don't
ready
care.
to kill you that day.
Well, it was a pivot moment for you.
Oh, gosh.
And that was, I mean, that was the catalyst right there where you just...
It was
took
actually a
turns.
guy was the catalyst.
Mm.
Like, I was sad about a guy, and then I was, like, really not in a good space, and that just spiraled everything. I was just like, I'm done. I'm done with this whole life. I have a lot to share on that front. I could tell you all kinds of It's so funny that you say the relationship piece. It's like that
It
was
does
really
sound like a
lovely that you
relationship
said
because
that.
what you just described sounds like a breakup to me.
That, well,
I
this
just can't do this
all
anymore. I
came
don't
out
love
of a
you
breakup.
anymore, you know?
All of this stuff comes from a breakup.
Okay, guys, we're
actually.
coming back in. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
And Tracy.
Say hi, Mom, too.
Welcome back. You're listening to Biz Talk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we make courageous contagious. She helps people overcome their limiting beliefs and get out of what she calls ditch moments so they can step into who they are meant to become and achieve the life and career they've always wanted. And we're going to hear all about her principles. I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Aaron Canada.
And I'm Bob Ryan. Welcome back to our very happy show with Natalie Susi, founder and CEO of What Have I Learned, and whathavaIlearned.org is the website. They teach what we need to learn. I think that's wonderful. I love that. We're just getting into the happiness story and your transition. Where were we when we ended?
Look at my cheat sheet down there.
Jack introduced you to personal development. Oh, that's right. We're talking
Jack
about Canfield's book,
The
The
story,
Success Principle,
yeah.
the story. We were right
Story.
there. Can you go on with that? Because I promised people 2 breaks now that we were going to finish that story.
No, I love this story. So anyway, basically, to make a very long story short, my mentor gave me this book. I did one of the exercises in it. You write on a white note card this SMART goal, and it sounds like mine was by September 2016, I will make XYZ amount of dollars per month doing what I love to do and feeling happy and purposeful. That was it. So it was...
That's a SMART goal the
That-
way it's defined in the book?
Yep.
Cool.
And you write it on a white note card, and you read it every morning and every night. And I did this action, and I took one professor out that hired me at San Diego State who I had a good relationship with. I took him out for lunch. I told him, I just want to get back in the classroom. Just please help me. I don't care what it looks like. And he had always supported that. So he was like, okay, I got you, basically. And then I went home, and I dropped it. I didn't fill out a bunch of applications. I didn't stress about it. I don't actually know how I took that action of no action, but I did. I just, let it go. And I went home and I spent time with my mom and my dad. And my mom, same thing one night. She goes, just back to doing what you love to do. It was kind of similar to the year before when she was like, you're not happy. And then, so I was trying to complete a marketing consulting gig. Somebody wanted to hire me for their food and beverage company, and I just wasn't interested. And I was like pissed. I was like trying to fill out this marketing gig. She was like, Natalie, just stop. Just go back to doing what you love to do. And that night, it was about 60 days after I did my note card and was reading them every morning and every night. And she made that statement to me. And I sat down at my computer about 2 hours later, and I got an email from that professor that I took out to lunch who said, UCSD is looking for teachers for their freshman writing class. Just fill out the form. There's like 100 people applying. We'll just see what happens. I sent in a really good recommendation for you, and he did.
This was the teacher you knew from SDSU?
Yep.
How did he come across the UCSD? Is it just a small world
Yeah.
in academia? So he wasn't looking on the forums for you. He just had heard that there was...
Oh, no. Yeah.
Okay.
He just, somebody who I had went to grad school with reached out to him and was like, do you have any teachers?
Gotcha.
And I had just gone out to lunch with him. I had just taken him out to lunch. And so he sent it to me, and I filled out all the stuff. And as soon as I was ready to send everything off, I was like, let me just click on the link just to be sure, because it's a freshman writing class. There's really nothing unique to say about it. They're all the same. But I just was like, let me click on the link, make sure that there isn't anything I can put in the cover letter. And I clicked on the link, and it was like, new theme, first time, the pursuit of happiness.
No.
Not kidding.
So this
Wow.
is
Not kidding.
Is this your first awareness of the pursuit of happiness?
Yeah.
That's going to be a part of your life?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm like clicking on this link, and I cannot believe my eyes, and I'm crying, and like every dysfunctional moment over the last 6 years, like pat through my eyes, and I'm like, holy cow, like I have been training to teach this course for 6 years. Everything I went through makes sense if I get to teach this course. And I just knew I had it. It was like in the bag. And I called the next day the office like a couple of times. I was like kind of a lunatic about it. Like I called like 6 times. And then finally at the end of the day, the guy called me back, and he was like, well, you've called the office like about 6 times. Like, what can I do for you? And I was like, I know this sounds really wacky, but like I'm meant to teach that. You have to let me teach this course. I will be the best person to teach this course. And after about 45 minutes, he closed the call, and he was like, I think you're right. And he talked to like.
Did you
his
go into
supervisor.
why at that point?
Oh yeah, I
After
told him.
45 minutes. So
I was real. I told the story.
you went through all the
yes.
trials and tribulations
Yes.
that prepared you to teach this.
Similar
Yeah.
to the 45 minutes we just spent with you?
Yes. Yeah, basically. That's exactly right. Poor guy.
I
She's
don't
a
feel
good
bad
friend of
for
mine
us,
now.
so why would you feel bad for him?
Now I'm concerned about his emotions.
He weathered the storm with me through the story. But yeah, and that an hour later I had the contract, and it was in the bag, and I taught the course, and I said goodbye. Like it's a 10-week course. The UCSD is on the quarter system.
I know you're trying to make this quick.
Yeah, sorry.
Tell the story. That's
Yeah, go
okay.
ahead.
Did you know at that point in time that this was pivotal, that this was a major event in your life?
Yeah.
So you knew that.
Yeah, I did.
She knew that when she saw the title of the
When I
class.
saw, yeah, because I was like started crying. It was like it was just like a full body experience at 11 p.m. on the East Coast.
Wow.
Like it was crazy.
So that knowledge allowed you to work without any fear at that point, I'm guessing,
Yeah.
because you knew
Yes.
this is where you were going. So whatever would have stopped you doing other things are now just tiny little bumps in the road
Yes.
that you just drive right over.
Yes.
Wow.
correct.
Anyhow, sorry, go ahead. You landed the contract.
Landed the contract.
You're getting ready to teach the course.
Mm-hmm.
And did you do the syllabus? Did you do...
No, syllabus was done already.
It was already done.
Yeah, it was done. It was really easy.
But it
I walked in.
fit
and
right into what you were doing.
Totally fit in.
Wow.
It was a lot of people that were on the syllabus were names in the happiness space that I'm super familiar with now, but had already heard a little bit about. And so then I just set up the whole course. It's a 10-week course, and I built the course around the 10 principles of happiness. Every week is focused around a different principle with a different mantra and some exercises that the students can implement. And I spend about 10 to 12 minutes in the hour and 20 minutes on personal development stuff. So we do goal setting, and we watch videos, TED Talk stuff about how seeing is believing, the same kind of thing you guys talk about. And so my goal with those kids is to just teach them how they can create the life that they want to live.
No, this was a freshman English class.
Writing class, yeah.
A freshman writing class. Did the kids that you were teaching understand the impact of what they were learning at the age they were? Was that meaningful to them?
Yes. So one night, right before the first day of class, I got this like sort of inspiration of putting a one-pager together of why this is going to be the best class in their entire life.
Whoa.
That's the title of the course. Like, why is this going to be the best the best class of
That's a
your
pretty
life.
bold statement.
And that's how I feel about it. And so I get them, like I spend the first day of class really getting them to buy into.
What
like,
did you mean by best? Most enjoyable or most impactful and
most
meaningful?
impactful, but really whatever they think is the best. Like I leave that up to them to kind of define what's most empowering to them or impactful to them. But I always say, it's purposeful, it's practical, it'll personally develop you, and it'll raise your level of happiness. And I have 4 quadrants and a bunch of points why each of those things is true. Because I have a lot of really logical students in there that just want it to be practical, right? And then I have other kids in there that really want to understand what it means to be happy. You know what I'm saying? And other kids that are cool to personally develop. Like they want to understand what it means to be personally, to go down that path.
It amazes me because when I was a freshman in college, I don't even think these concepts existed. But that was back in the dark ages. You're listening to Biz Talk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, our very happy show with Natalie Susi, founder and CEO of whathavelearned.org. Go there. They teach what we need to learn. You're listening to Biz Talk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Aaron Kanata.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. We've got one more segment.
Yeah.
Finish the story?
I think the story is basically done at this
Okay.
point.
If you're done with that process into that, I would like to talk about mentors.
Yeah.
Like I said, you've mentioned it a few times, and I don't think many people understand the advantage of mentors.
I think we could say too, like what I would love to get across is that, I do happiness coaching now.
Oh, let's do that.
So let's
do that. Let's go right into that. Oh, let's segue right into that, and then if we have time, we'll do mentors.
Mentor, I mean, we can fit that both in those pieces.
I don't know,
Mentorship
because
is-
I have a lot of questions about your happiness coaching.
Oh, you do? Okay, that's probably more important.
Wouldn't that kind of, the people who hire you, aren't you kind of mentoring them toward happiness? So they're one and the same.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's a good point. She's now was being mentored and now is a mentor, right?
I have
Look at what coming full circle.
Jack Canfield. I just wrote a chapter for him. You want to talk about full circle? That whole story I just told you about Jack Canfield. I met him at an event and I told him that story, and he was like, "Write that for my next book." So it's all done. He's already he's going to put that story in his book. That's a full circle moment if I ever experience
Yes.
one.
Did we have? No, we had what's his name on that Jack Canfield.
John Astor.
No, he's here in San Diego. He does all the co-writing of books. Why can't I think
Craig
his
Reed?
No.
Oh no,
He's a ghostwriter?
No, he's a famous writer.
chicken noodle soup for the soul?
No, that's Jack Canfield.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He just did.
Ken,
Ken Blanchard.
Oh, yeah.
but I
yeah,
thought
yeah.
he wrote.
Huh?
Oh, he didn't write chicken noodle soup.
No,
No.
he wrote 1 Minute Manager.
Okay.
Oh,
And then he's co-wrote 1 million books with people. He just got done doing one.
We
with,
haven't had him on yet. He left. He leaves for the season.
Well, he was on
When
before I got sick.
Not since I've been part of the show, or we've been part of the show, I should say.
Okay, coming back in.
But we did contact him, and he goes out of town for a couple months a year.
Welcome back. You're listening to Biz Talk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we make courageous contagious. We'd like to thank our award-winning engineer, Jeff Bilodeau, our show music by Derek Audette, our interns, Sarah Andrew, and in studio with us, Dan and Sunit. Thanks, guys. We couldn't do it without you. I'm Montana Smith.
I'm Aaron Kanata.
And I'm Bob Ryan. Welcome back to our very happy show with Natalie Susi, founder and CEO of whathavelearned.org. I love what you're doing. We just talked about the transition from the fact that you had sold the business that you had, worked for the company, realized it wasn't what you should be doing. You decided to go back to your passion of teaching. You end up getting a referral or reference into UCSD to teach an English writing class. Yes, that the title of which, or the I guess the theme of was what is it called? The Pursuit of Happiness or Life? Yeah. And so you had been preparing for this unknown for several years.
Yeah.
You told them you needed to teach that course. They believed you. You taught it. And you did something really interesting. You put a one-page together that tells the students, the freshmen that are taking that class, that this is going to be the best class they ever took.
Yeah.
That's pretty bold a statement to make. But if you can give somebody at 18 the ability to know how to pursue happiness in their life, you're giving them a gift very, very young. that they can use till the day they die.
I agree. I mean, asking that question at 18, what does it mean to be happy? What do I need for happiness? Like, that's crazy. If
I know what
ask
I
that
was
question
happy
at
about when I
18.
was 18.
It wasn't studying literature.
No.
Maybe if there was a cute girl in literature.
Yeah, that would be
Oh,
the
that's
point,
true.
yes.
That's true.
So you now are offering to help other people besides your students
Yeah.
with happiness. Talk about what you're doing in your coaching world, your mentoring world.
Yeah, so as a happiness coach, right, that's what I'm kind of coined. I've just partnered with a company called Pavlok, and they actually have a word, Pavlok, so Pavlok.
Not like Pavlov's dogs.
That's right.
But it's a play on that, right? It's a play on that.
Oh, it is?
Yes. Oh, yeah. And it's
Okay, I'm
it's a wearable.
salivating right now.
Ding, ding, ding. It's a really cool company. They help you change your habits, and they just started adding coaching to the company.
Seriously?
Yeah.
They have a mechanism to change habits.
They actually have a bracelet that you wear. It's a wearable device that shocks you out of a bad habit.
No way.
it's
I
really
need
cool.
that.
Yeah,
It'd
really
be shocking
cool.
me all day long. with.
Really
It's like wearing a rubber band around your wrist and
Yeah.
pinging every
Yep.
time you did
So
something.
you partnered up with them.
Partner with them, and they're adding coaching as part of their offering, and I'm the happiness coach with them. They have 60,000 users, so it's pretty awesome. And basically when somebody comes to me and says, like, well, what are you coaching? What does a happiness coach do? I say, okay, we need to understand where your patterns
Hey,
are
hang on.
triggered.
There's
Yeah.
60,000 people in the
Users,
world right
yes.
now that are getting shocked every day when they do something they shouldn't.
There's
Yeah.
Bob with his
So is
simplistic.
this like if I
Whoa.
reach for a cookie, this is going to shock me?
That's it. Because you want to change that habit of stop reaching for
I'm
the
just
cookies.
curious how the bracelet knows that what I'm doing is something I shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
Leave it up to you.
It reads your mind, obviously.
No, it's a really cool website. It's a really cool product. I love it.
And what's the website of that?
It's called Pavlok.com.
How do you spell Pavlok?
Pavlok.com.
Pavlok.com
/happiness.
/happiness.
Yeah.
So if you want to be happy, you need to be shocked.
Maybe.
It may be. That could be the way to get there.
Strategies.
So when you take on, do you call them clients?
Yeah.
So-
Coaching clients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you take on a coaching client, do you obviously have a process you put them
Totally.
through, or you wouldn't have a way to get them to where they think you're going to take them?
That's right.
How long does it take for most people? I mean, is this something that can be done in a short time, or are we looking at years of work to do this?
No, I think the beautiful thing about coaching is you can get that done in 8 to 10 weeks. I have 10 principles of happiness. I have 10 exercises that I take them through. It's a lot of goal setting and intentional, practical stuff. And I think that's a big thing that's different with coaching and counseling, right? So I've done a lot of therapy, a lot of people have, and they don't see a ton of results because they're just talking. When you're coaching, you're doing something. You're taking actionable results. And coaching has this element of going like, what's the limiting belief? What's the trigger? What's the pattern? Like, it's very like, how do you look at life? What's the lens that you look at life through? And how do we shift that and reframe it and uproot that belief and implant a different belief and neuro pathways and changing? I mean,
So
it's a lot
coaching
of
is
stuff to
directive
that.
as opposed to
Yes.
just, and that's why my 62 years of therapy hasn't worked.
No,
Okay.
coaching is
I need
is
coaching.
the way to go.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
happiness in and of itself is not measurable. You can't put on a machine and look at somebody and say, at this moment you experience peak happiness. But you can identify things in your life that make you happy, right? So are you using kind of the Socratic method to ask the right questions to help people realize what it is? So if it's say it's an already successful entrepreneur who comes to you and says, I'm just not happy, and it turns out they want to spend more time with their kids, and everything's driving them to make their company successful, but they're not in their personal life focusing on the things that they know make them happy, like maybe surfing in the morning, or so it's almost like turning things on its head and saying, well, why don't you live like? And anyhow, I'm kind of filling in the blanks for you, but what is
Stop it
If you go on much longer,
how
she
does
won't
your
have to talk
coaching
at all.
manifest itself in the real world?
Yeah.
What do you do when people are sitting down with you doing these things? What are they doing?
So when they're coming in, basically I'm doing a client, the first step is just a client assessment, like exactly like what you're saying. What is the issue right now? And that issue generally lends itself to some sort of limiting belief that's from a long time ago. And so the first session is all like what I call like a stacking, like a relationship stacking, where you just tell me all your junk, all your ditch moments. Because when I hear what your ditch moments are, right? Ditch moments are like you're in a crappy moment. You can imagine what it means, right? It's a crappy moment
You'd probably
in life.
hang up on me.
Right? And
Yeah.
you're just stuck there and you don't know how far down you
Yeah.
are or how you're going
Yeah.
to get out. And
Wow.
they stack those, and then there's a commonality between all of those ditch moments that equal some sort of pattern or limiting belief.
So you see things they don't. You're able
Yes.
to direct them in ways, so it's not all questioning. You actually can give advice and tell people that maybe they should try this or try this, which I like way better than just hearing people talk over
Yeah.
time. Real quick, I know we're running out of time on the show. Do you have capacity to take on more clients at this point?
Yes, of course.
So if who should call you? There are people out there listening that are thinking this would be really great. Who should be calling you?
People that are in a stuck moment in life and they want their next steps, they want practical next steps to shift right now.
So both of our listeners get on the phone right now.
WhatHaveILearned.org is the website, or
Pavlak.com.
Pavlak.com/happiness.
You got it.
Natalie, Susi, thank you so much.
Thank you. This was awesome.
Founder and CEO of WhatHaveILearned.org. Go there. You're listening to Biz Talk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio. Go make something good happen for yourself, folks, today. Take that mad leap. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smith.
American Auto.
Bye-bye. Oh, I like that song.
That's a great way to
I
go
know.
out.
Thank-
Way to go
thank you,
out.
Jeff.
Love that. Thank you.
Our engineer is a comedian. He's a stand-up comedian.
Oh,
And
cool.
he won the funniest man in San Diego.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow, that's a big deal.
So every time I ask him if he thinks I'm funny, he says, we got to go to a break. It's kind of a standard
You want to
thing.
Yeah.
do a picture?
Yes, yeah, we'll turn off the cameras here.
We
So,
gotta go to break.
yep.
I'll get back.
We're going to take a picture with you.